Yeah, now that you got me.
Yeah, great. This is quite exciting actually to reach out overseas.
Yeah.
Very good. It's amazing what things can be achieved now. I mean, the Zoom platform was there pre-pandemic. It was all there, but hardly anybody used it.
Yeah, mostly
Yeah,
for meetings in
yeah,
small companies and
yeah,
corporates.
yeah. So how many have we got at the moment? One, two, three.
Hmm. I'll double check that
Yeah,
there is no waiting room.
yeah. So far we have Mahmoud, Yusuf, and Youssef. One, two, three. Yeah.
Different ways of saying the same name.
How did you say it?
So, I mean, the way that it's written in English is a little bit different.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. Maybe we can give it a couple more minutes and then.
yep.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us. It's very nice of you to join. I would say warm greetings from the UK, but in fact, it's terrible weather here. It's windy, it's cold, and I won't show you a picture of how it is outside, but I'm sure it's very nice weather where you are. Would it be possible to post on the chat where you're from, which hospital, and what level you're working at, just for our own interest to get to know you, if you don't mind. Thank you. And we'll make a start in a few minutes. Oh, here we go. Croydon F1, excellent. Where it's equally dark and
Well,
cold and windy. Unless it's 30 degrees in Croydon, I doubt it.
yeah, someone from Cairo as well.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
good.
Cairo, I'll probably get the pronunciation wrong. Al Hilal Hospital.
Al Hilal. Yeah, it's a big one around central
Yeah.
Cairo.
Okay.
Orthopedic hospital, if I'm not mistaken.
So, Dr. Mahmood, I'm going to ask you, what is the temperature and the weather in Cairo right now, please? Because when I
I,
visited Cairo, it was 35 degrees. Beautiful.
I think it's quite warm right now, but I'd be surprised actually if it's more
Yeah.
than 30.
25. 25.
Hmm.
Okay, I think we should make a start.
Yeah, yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. So, thank you very much for joining us. I'm very grateful to Abdul, who has really put this together. And what we would like to do is we'll introduce ourselves, but essentially provide you with some pearls of wisdom as to how to succeed with the MRCS Part A. And we'll link this with our new website, mrcompanion.com, which you'll find is a fantastic aid to helping you succeed. And the ultimate endpoint of all of this is really to get you through what is a challenging exam in a system which some of you may not be used to. And it would be great to get advice from Abdul, who's taken the exam successfully quite recently, both Part A and Part B. I'm Professor Bhaskar Kumar. I'm a consultant upper GI surgeon. I'm based at the Norfolk and Norwich Hospital, which is about the sixth busiest acute trust here in the UK. We're a teaching hospital. We have a lot of contact with trainees like Abdul, as well as senior trainees who are completing subspecialist training and waiting to take the FRCS exam. Um, just for declaration, I am not a MRCS examiner because if you are a MRCS examiner, then you're not allowed to participate in such activities. But I have been heavily involved in the FRCS organizing the exam, running it here in Norwich back in 2019 before the pandemic, as well as co-author of a leading textbook for the FRCS and a leading website for the FRCS too. So I will pass you on to Abdul, who's going to give a nice presentation on some basic hints and tips on passing the MRCS Part A. But thank you for joining us.
Hello, everyone. My name is Abdelrahman or Abdul, and I am a core surgical trainee at Norfolk and Norwich University Hospital, same hospital as Professor Kumar. Um, I'm in general surgery, and I'm going to spend 24 months in general surgery by next August. I came to the UK as an international medical graduate, so I am a graduate of Alexandria University, Faculty of Medicine, class of 2020. I finished my internship year or foundation year, as they call it here in the UK, and then I spent an extra year, which is equivalent to F2, and afterwards I came to the UK. The pathway that I took to the UK is that of the PLAB exam, and the PLAB exam. I know that some of you might have taken it, some of you might be studying for it. It was considered as the easiest way into the UK, so I studied for it as well as the English language exam, and then I came to the UK in a trust grade job that was in Oxford, orthopedics and plastics, and then afterwards I went into training and applying into core surgical training, and I'm in my second year of core surgical training at the Norfolk and Norwich. I believe it's important that you understand that changing the systems is by no means an easy thing. And you change how you think, you change how you approach different problems at work, and also the structure of the hospital. I know that Egypt is a bit of a mishmash of systems and that we don't have a unified system like the NHS. But even though I worked in multiple ones during my foundation training, you still need to be inducted somehow. And one of the ways that you be inducted is that you take exams. So both the BLAG exam and the MRCS exam are ways through which you get inducted into how the system here in the UK works, but also they're very useful for your daily practice. Now, the MRCS, or the membership of the Royal College of Surgeons, is a dual exam. So basically, there's a Part A and a Part B. The Part A is the first one you take, and most people take it somehow in the beginning of their surgical residency or even during their foundation training here. Um, and the sweet spot, many people speak about the sweet spot, is between the second year of foundation training or the late second year of foundation training and the first year of core surgical training, which is the first year of surgical training here in the UK. I didn't take it in Egypt, but I know many people are taking it in Egypt, and there are now two centers. I believe they're planning on opening a third for the MRCS Part B. And MRCS Part A has way more centers that the Pearson View centers that you usually book, both in Alexandria and Cairo. And I believe also they're opening a third one in Ain Shams, that's the university in Cairo as well. So you have two centers in Cairo. Um, the material is the same. We call this the intercollegiate exam because all four colleges agree on the material, and the material is the same for all the colleges, and also the exam standards are the same between here and the UK. Getting the exam is not only important for people coming to the UK, but also in Egypt, because if you get the membership, which is the Royal College of Surgeons, membership of the Royal College of Surgeons, you can get certified in the medical syndicate as a specialist assistant, or مساعد أخصائي in Arabic. And this is a good step for your career progression in Egypt, because you only need to spend 2 years after passing the exam to become a specialist in Egypt as per the syndicate. Therefore, it's not just something to come to the UK, although it's a very viable way to get your GMC registration and then come here as a junior registrar. Um, Preparation-wise, it is one of the most important steps is to get prepared for the exam. And the common pitfall in that, or the two most common pitfalls, is number one, preparing too late. I never believed, and I don't think it's a good idea to prepare too late and cram all the information. We call this bulimic learning, and it never works. You will think that you're achieving too much. You have done that in medical school, but it's completely different for the MRCS exam, because you need to retain this knowledge. And even if you can pass the exam, even if you are able to go through the exam and get your certificate, you will not remember this knowledge. And the knowledge of MRCS Part A is an essential part of MRCS Part B, which is the second part of the exam. And without properly studying early on with a good schedule, you will struggle throughout the exam and then afterwards. So early preparation is very important. And the second thing is a good, reliable source for the questions that you're going to study for. many people will start the exam by studying in from different sources, 5 or 6 books, and then get these big textbooks to start from. You probably don't need or any of that. You've already, I mean, if you're studying in Egypt, we know how huge the curriculum is. The surgical curriculum itself is well, the one that I studied was 1,500 pages, and you have to study every single detail of it. I don't think you will be lacking in information, but just in retaining this information, revising many questions, and revising works best if you do it early and if you do it repetitively. So preparing early, having a good source of questions, one that is comprehensive and one that is up to date is the main thing that will help you pass the exam.
Abdul, may I just interrupt and ask you a question? When candidates who study in India come across here, one of the things which they mention is that in India, a lot of the emphasis, even now, is on detailed textbook learning, really learning a lot of mass detail. I think it's changed a
Mm.
little bit, but it still is the emphasis there. Here in the UK, we tend to emphasize not only a degree of detail, but more importantly, the application in clinical scenarios and the application, the practicalities around it. Did you find that that was a difference from the Egyptian system to here?
Very much the case, Prof. I do remember in my 6th year of medical school, we were studying the details of total mesorectal excision in colorectal surgery, which to me was completely enigmatic, and I didn't really understand what they were talking about because this was not applicable for a last year medical student. We wanted to see patients, we wanted to assess patients with pancreatitis, with gallbladder disease, with things that we are expected to see regardless of our specialty. But the focus on theoretical knowledge and not really the focus on patient care, it still is a problem. It's improving. I do believe it's improving now. They are applying the module system. I believe our young graduates might be having this new system where they have 2 years now foundation training instead of the one that I used to have. And they're focusing more on patient care on the module system that is very close actually to the universities here in the UK. But it remains a problem.
So really, the following on from that is the emphasis on preparing for this exam, really doing a lot of MCQs rather than spending hours writing notes, reading book chapters forever and not doing enough MCQs. And I think one of the points I'm sure you'll agree on is the people who pass very quickly, like yourself, they've done a lot of MCQs or SBAs, I should be saying, over and over again.
Yes, I completely agree, Prof. I actually so I sat my MRCS Part A exam during the last 2 months of my trust grade job. So that was, I believe, in May of 2024, just before starting my training job here. Uh, I studied for around 4 to 5 months before that. And almost all of that time, I was mostly focused. I revised some anatomy indeed. It's important, of course, to revise some basic knowledge. But most of that time, I focused on answering MCQs and repetitively going through them and reading the main points that I'm missing and focusing on what I missed. So basically, some aspects of anatomy, some aspects of physiology, or critical care. Some things that you will find that are, I like to say, the Achilles heel of each
Mm.
each applicant, things that you might have missed in medical school or perhaps not focused enough on. This is how I think you can build a good knowledge basis to carry to the exam to make sure that you will not make the mistakes in the exam that you would make. Because most of us, uh, as juniors, we'd still retain some degree of knowledge from medical school, and we're just
Yeah.
strengthening on it rather than reading again from huge textbooks.
And with that repetitive MCQ practice comes a good technique because once the
Indeed.
exam begins, you can be tight for time, and your technique alone might be the difference between pass and fail. And in fact, some people who pass have an average level of knowledge, but actually very good technique. So that can only be gained by exposure to a lot of MCQs. Within the Egyptian curriculum, do the guys get exposure to a lot of MCQs through medical school, or
We do.
they do?
We indeed do. But I think the format of the MCQs is quite different, and that is what I think is the main
Yeah.
issue that many Egyptian trainees will face. Because the MCQs that we have in medical school are very comprehensive, very detailed, and they focus on details that would otherwise not come in an MRCS exam. An MRCS would not test the details of a surgical technique or would ask very
No.
peculiar anatomy questions, but would rather focus on things that are applicable in daily knowledge. And the problem
So
is that if
this
they
is
learn
the
too much,
point. Yeah, this is a very, very important point, and that is there's so much emphasis in the UK on decision making rather than real nitty-gritty detail. And our advice to candidates taking the exam would be to expose yourself to these MCQs, which will give you a different style rather than those that. There are knowledge testing questions, of course, but on the whole, there'll be some application behind it. And that is the same for even candidates taking the FRCS. The emphasis in the UK system is very much on decision making and clinical application.
I agree. I completely agree, Prof. And this is the thing that I believe most junior applicants, once they've just starting the training, the clinical training, or in fact their foundation year, I think this is what they should focus on. Um, Also, the technique in the exam, I do believe, is rather different from what we might have in our medical schools. It's the economy of knowing when to answer a question. So rather, I do believe that, for instance, one of the things that I found to be challenging in these exams is how to know which questions to go back to. And this is something about the technique of going through the exam that I wanted to point out. I'm not sure if it's a good time to start talking about this now. The exam is not hard, and I have to focus on this so much. The exam is not difficult, it's not hard, it's not intimidating, but it's not an easy exam by any means. So it does need good preparation, it does need good technique, but it's very much possible. And actually, I think the last sort of statistic that I saw was about 65% pass rate, which is very significant for an exam like this. And if 65% can pass it, I believe that the technique is not impossible by any means. But many people prepare very well, actually sometimes over prepare, only to end up in the exam panicking, not knowing exactly how to use their knowledge. And the moment they see a question that they can't answer, they waste too much time on it.
Abdul,
And
did you say
yeah,
65% pass?
I do believe so. That's the last statistic that I checked.
Is that overall including overseas candidates and the UK candidates?
I think so.
Because I think the pass rate amongst the overseas candidates might be a bit less, and the principal reason for that is exposure to a new system. So I think your
Mm,
advice about how to modify your approach will be very useful for everyone. I think there's about 14 people or 15 people on this call. So that is crucial. And having helped a number of candidates who failed this exam on repeated occasions, the one common theme to come up is not really a lack of work. It's how you've worked and how you've performed on the day in terms of your technique. So Abdul will give you some very useful tips on that. For everyone, if you want to post any questions, feel free to post on the chat, and we'll do our best to answer all of them. We may not be able to because we're going to do this for about 45 minutes and let you go.
yeah.
Sorry, Abdul. Back to you.
No, no, no. Please do post your question, guys, if you have any. So, as for the technique, we are always focusing on getting the highest mark possible, and this is something that we get from medical school. I have to get an A. I have to get an excellent grade, so you're trying to get as many marks as you can. And this is the same for all exams. But you have to know that the MRCS is a passable exam. You just need to pass. And in order to be able to pass, which is not 50%, it's usually much higher than that. But in order to be able to pass, you have to know exactly that which questions are going to give you the marks. So the first thing is that if you waste too much time and you're unable to finish your exam, you will miss marks that you could have gotten otherwise. So number one, do not waste too much time. And number two, know how to use the flagging function. So many of us do not really know what the flag is for. Now, the flagging function is a function where you have a red flag button over each question that will show on the side of your screen, and through which you can go back to know which question you wanted to take another look at. I like to classify these into three kinds of questions. The first question is a question you're sure of. So you see the question, you read it, you know the answer straight away, and that you definitely don't need to flag this one, or you don't need to go back to this one because you already know the answer. And there are many questions that you have to go through, so I wouldn't waste my time on that. Second type of questions are questions that I know nothing about. So you read the question, you perhaps missed that part in your preparation, you know nothing about this anatomical part, you've never read that word before, you even have to read it properly. And again, I would not leave that empty, so leave an answer, the closest one you can think of, but I wouldn't go back to that again because you're unlikely to remember something that you know nothing about. The third kind of questions, though, which I believe you should flag, are questions that when you read and then you see the answers to, you are hanging between two answers, or more or less likely three answers. So if you have two answers that are kind of equivalent to you, or you think both of them are viable for this question, do choose the more likely. So do not leave the question empty. Do choose the more likely, and then flag the question and go forward. This way, you can go back to the question if you have the time, and you perhaps will remember something, or you notice that a unit sometimes is not written properly. Sometimes they do this trick where they write a wrong unit, and then, oh, I haven't read that, so this must be the wrong answer, this must be the right answer. So I would do that for these questions. But if you don't get the time to go back to them, then you've already chosen the more likely of the other of the two, and therefore you are less likely to lose marks on it. Do not leave any vacant questions, do not leave any blank questions without answering them, and at the same time, do not have too many flagged questions. From my very limited experience and my speed in answering questions, I would never have more than 10. Actually, 5 is the best number to go back to because more than that, you will just waste too much time. Some people like to go through the whole set of questions again. I never found this to be useful. It will probably just stress you, and you're more likely in the last 5 minutes of the exam to stress so much that you just keep changing your answers for no reason and lose marks. So
So,
these
so
are the two
these
things.
tips which Abdul's giving you could make the difference between passing and fail. This is crucially important, and as I mentioned earlier, it's a common theme amongst people who don't pass that they don't have a technique worked out. And the only way you'll develop that technique is to be exposed to a lot of MCQs, and actually near the time of the exam to take a mock exam under time conditions. Um, we'll see how things develop, but I'm sure between Abdul and myself, we can come up with some um, future webinars where we can show you some worked examples which will demonstrate the technique of how it should be approached versus how it shouldn't. Perhaps if there's enough interest, we can do that at a later stage.
The other thing, Prop, I'd like to point out is that now more and more, I'm not sure actually if you heard about these news, more and more foundation year doctors in Egypt are taking even the MRCS Part B, so they're taking it too early on. The Royal College actually made a requirement for Egypt to have a proper graduation certificate, which we get after the second year of foundation training in order to be able to sit the Part B. Uh, this is a good sign actually. It means that people are motivated, but at the same time, it might mean that you are not really dealing with the MRCS as you should. So the MRCS is a knowledge exam. You have to pass it. Obviously, you have to get your certification. The MRCS Part A, I think you should take it as early as you can after graduation. But in order to prepare for it well, do make sure while you're a student is that you're studying the right way. So do study anatomy, do study physiology, do study microbiology. Give everything the right that it takes. Because even though the MRCS is an exam that is designed for you to be a professional, so here in the UK, I'm as a co-trainee, I have to pass both parts before applying for a third year of training. We call this the higher specialist training or the ST3 year. If I don't pass both exams, I'm unable to progress further. And for you, you have to have the MRCS to work as a surgical registrar in the UK. This is a requirement, an essential requirement. So they have the understanding and the assumption, and very rightly so, that you have good enough surgical knowledge by the time you finish the MRCS Part B to work as a surgical registrar, who's someone that is fairly independent in surgical practice. Yes, of course, they go back to the consultant, they ask them questions, but they are fairly independent. So if you're planning to come to the UK, do pass your exams, get your English language exams, and do the MRCS exams. But do not be tempted to take the MRCS Part B too early. Make sure that you prepare well for the MRCS Part A, have enough time, pass your exam, read the material properly, and prepare as early as you can. I think if you do that, you are more likely to pass. That's one. And after you finish your certification, you're more likely to find working in the UK to be easier, and the transition from your system to the system of the UK to be more feasible or more friendly to your liking.
Abdul, perhaps you can explain to the guys the different resources which you found available, the pros and cons of the different websites.
Yeah, sure thing, Prof. So, well, to be honest with you, I started the wrong way. I've unfortunately listened to, people who kept, and it's very common, guys, especially on Facebook groups. I know that we use them all the time. You go to a Facebook group and then you post this question, "Oh, I'm preparing for the MRCS Part A. What kind of resources should I study?" And then you find uh, hundreds of comments, tens of comments saying, "Oh, yeah, I should study the anatomy from this and the physiology from that." And usually the resources they say applied sciences for the MRCS, which, by the way, is a very good book. But I do believe if you're going to study, you should start going through MCQs from day one. So if you keep reading the theoretical stuff, I've done that. I've wasted time doing that, and I hate for anyone to waste time doing that. You would just focus on the anatomy or the physiology, getting into the book, having this academical sort of mentality, and then ending up with the exam saying, "Oh, why are they asking these questions and not these questions?" And then getting lost in the lots of questions. So I've tried past test books, as in the very theoretical ones, didn't really sit well with me because I already knew most of the knowledge that were in them, and they were arranged in a different way, which, to be honest, I do not think benefited me much by studying them this way than my medical school knowledge. I do think if I started answering the questions from the first day, I would have just gotten them right, and I wouldn't have needed to go through all of this. If you find a specific field or question or an anatomical part or a physiological topic that you're not really well versed in, it's good question. It's a good practice to go back to it or read it properly in order to know that bit of information. But to start reading from the start, not really having some sort of a basis for your knowledge, that is wrong. So big books, lots of knowledge, whether it's applied science for the MRCS or past test books, do have them if you like, no problem at all. but do not start by them, spend months reading them without answering any questions. This is a terrible mistake that I did. I tried the EMRCS website. Uh, it is attractive because it is cheap, and I'll be very honest here, guys. Or we think it is cheap, to be honest. But well, many of the questions, you find always that there is a comment section on the side that when going through the questions, you find a comment section, people saying, "Oh, this answer is probably not right," or "This has never came in the last 5 years." I do think it's out of date, and I even though I used it, I had to have another question bank with it. What I did use the past test question bank, which was good but quite expensive to be honest. And I do believe the last count that I had was 2,500 questions, which was okay. But I do think that you might need a little bit more than that. Um, Ideally, you need to go through the questions twice if you can. And each question that you answer, you should check usually when you answer it with a right or wrong, there's an explanation at the bottom of it. I read it and it was useful for me to know what kind of, as I said, Achilles heel that I have in my knowledge, what kind of knowledge is defective. For my case, for example, I found out the anatomy of the pelvis was a little bit intimidating for me. I thought I was very good at it, but then when I started answering questions, I found that the relations weren't very much in my head, and I needed to re-revise it. As for anatomy, the one that I used, there's these videos, I think it's called Ackland videos. They were very useful. I like them because of the 3D anatomy that you see in them. I found them to be quite useful. I also studied anatomy from applied knowledge for the MRCS. Those were the two sort of references that I used where if I find a problem with the anatomy, I go back to that particular video, that particular page, and I read that part again, and then I continue answering questions all the time. Keep questions every day. And you can use that on your phone. So there's no need to wait until you're home from work to answer a few questions. If you're resting for a little bit, you can open your phone, open a website that you question bank that you're using, and answer 10 or 15 questions. 10 or 15 questions a day consistently are way better than answering 200 in a single day at the weekend of each week. I really would advise you to do that, guys. You will know what kind of weakness you have. You will study for that weakness and you will develop a habit, which is the best thing for revision.
There you are, words of wisdom from one of our excellent juniors. Abdul's done so well here, and really, really useful points. And we would be very keen to hear from you what areas you would like us to talk about in the future. If you'd like any webinars on particular topics, or what may be very useful, I think, and I think Abdul will agree, is a webinar where we can actually run some questions and demonstrate where technique really makes a difference. Um, just before we move on to our own resource, Abdul, in terms of Pearson VUE, what can the guy, I suppose it will be different from one place to another, but generally speaking, candidates who take the FRCs often find it distracting that there's people taking the driving test. They can be quite noisy. What kind of environmental things should people expect when they take a Pearson VUE test? Because I'm being an old man now, I took the old written paper.
Oh, right. No, I don't think profit will be that much different, to be honest, because I spoke to my friends from Egypt, and they had a similar experience. So I sat in Oxford, and the center there was very small, and I do think it was quite crowded for its size. So what happened is that you come in, you're allowed in. There's a waiting room, usually quite small for the size. So I sat Pearson VUE both in Oxford and in Norwich, and both of them the waiting room is quite small for some reason. You'll find many candidates there. People will be speaking. Now, people are different. For myself, I like to relax before the exam. I have no problem starting a chat with someone, get my nerves down and then going into the exam. Some people prefer just to be silent. There's no different. It doesn't really matter. Do not be intimidated by number one, the number of posters you find around you, because there are many. Some things about, leaving where you leave your belongings, where you get your key, what to do, etc. There are some instructions. It's okay to read them, but do not be distracted by that. Do not be stressed by that. There's usually someone sitting at the front desk, and it might sometimes be a little bit intimidating. They are might be a little bit rough in talking to you. If you're doing something against the rules of the exam, do not be intimidated. Do not be stressed. Okay, they are employees that are doing their job, and they have nothing personal towards you. So if they ask you to take out off your watch, now I'm using a smartwatch, you're not allowed to go with that into the exam. So they ask you to take that out. They will ask you if you have any phones to take them out to close your phone. All of that is uh, completely normal. Once you go into the exam and you go into your cubicle where there's a computer, a laptop, usually a computer, a PC, You'll find, well, in my exam at least, you'll find the little booklet on the side that has the normal values, lab values, etc. And these cubicles can be stressful for someone who is, stressed by enclosed spaces. So do focus on the monitor, the screen. Do not be intimidated by the instructions they give you. They're very clear. If you have any notice, do write it down. Okay. And once they leave you to answer your questions, consider this as your whole world. Do not focus on people around you. Yes, people will be producing sound. Some people will be tapping on the table. Some people will be making weird movements with their chair. You're focusing on your screen. You're focusing on your questions, and never ever think about the second part of the exam while answering the first part. Because this thing about, oh, the second part is more difficult. The second part will definitely be difficult as the first. If the first one is easy, it's never like that. Or for my exam, at least, the first part was the more difficult one. And if you think, so for example, if you think the first one, oh, that's the easy part, that must be the second part must be horrendous. It's never like that. And you have to understand that the passing mark is not constant. It is a bell curve that depends on the people in the place. So do not think about passing marks. Do not think about what the guy next to you is doing. Do not think about what the second paper will be like. If there is a rest between two parts, it depends on how you feel. So they will allow you to sit and continue for the second part of the exam after the first part. For myself, I didn't do that. Some people do that. Some people like to be in the exam mode and continue doing that. I'm not saying you definitely shouldn't do it, but if you felt stressed in the first part, definitely get out, take a breather, relax. They're allowed to eat and drink, have some water, and then go back in. Do not take the exam as one shot if you haven't done that before. And if you felt stressed in the first part, this is really important. I know someone who did that and who unfortunately didn't pass the exam. He was a very good. He prepared very well just because he was stressed. So do not stress yourself unnecessarily. The exam itself has its fair share of stress, which is normal, which is necessary. But I would not really sit both parts unless I'm absolutely sure that I'm relaxed. I think these are the main things in peer review, Prof. Once you get out, do not revise. Just go home, relax, have a breather. You've already been stressed for months. You've sat the exam, and nothing will change that. If you're really keen on revising after the exam, that's fine. I wouldn't do it straight away. I mean, if you really want to revise for your knowledge, etc., and if you're really relaxed and not stressed, again, I have to focus on this. If you're stressed, don't revise. If you're stressed, take a rest. If you're stressed, do not think too much about the exam, whether before or after. Go home, relax. Your results will come, and there's nothing you can do about it. If, God forbid, you do not pass the exam, then you have enough time to prepare again. It's very unlikely for the questions to come back again as they were, and you always have a question bank. But do not be stressed, or do not, because what I found is that you come out of the exam just in front of peers and your prof, and I've seen it everywhere. People were all
Mm.
standing in front of each other, revising the whole exam, and they're completely stressed and shaking their hands. I really wouldn't advise that.
I mean, I think that's great advice, and actually, it's quite good to talk about passing as well as failing. As surgeons, we are designed not to tolerate failure. Failure is not really an option with an operation. However, complications happen, and surgery is stressful, whatever branch of surgery that you do. So, dealing with failure is something which we get used to as a surgeon, and it's a matter of recovering, reflecting on how things went, and then going again. And I know plenty of surgical consultants who've not passed the FRCS on their first attempt, who've gone to pass and done very well in their career. So you should never feel that this is a determinant of your long-term success. Obviously, you need to pass it, but it doesn't matter too much if you don't pass it the first time or the second time. As long as you pass it, then that's fine. But I think the points that Abdul's given you will really increase your chances of passing significantly. So I'm very grateful to him for providing those.
Thank
Um,
you, Prof.
Abdul, I wonder if it's possible to share the MRCS website now. We can show the guys what our resource is about. Um,
Sure thing.
because you're
I'm
the
going to
host, you
share my
can pick
screen
it up.
now. I think I have it opened here. Uh, Tell me, guys, if you can see my screen now. If you write something in the chat, that would be great.
Yeah, I can see it. I'm sure they can as well. Yes, they can. Yeah. So
Ah,
just to give
perfect.
you the background here, my very good friend and colleague, Professor Phillips from Newcastle, who's also an upper GI surgeon, we've been in partnership with our excellent web designer, Mike Haddon, and we've, over a number of years now, produced a large bank of FRCS questions, which has been very successful and no doubt is one of the leading FRCS websites for the candidates. Our mission is to help you. Obviously, there is a financial incentive for us through the subscriptions, but our main incentive is to And the MRCS project is a very exciting one because we have a lot more international connectivity with this. But we've put together 4,000 plus questions, making it arguably the largest MRCS Part A um, question bank that's out there, and no doubt the most up to date. As the process goes along, we will be adding bits of theory and references as per your feedback as well. And we see this as a continuous process and journey. So this is the platform we have at the moment. You have access to demonstration questions. There is a mock exam as well, which I strongly recommend those who are coming up to the exam really take that. The mock exam comes with a timer function, and I can guarantee you it's a different world when you're taking an exam under time conditions compared to doing 5 questions from one part of the GI tract followed by another. Whereas in the exam, everything's quite random and mixed up. There are images that I believe you get in the exam, and we are one of the few websites to actually accommodate radiology images as well as skin lesions, so on and so forth. We're very confident you'll find this useful. I like to think that our pricing is actually very reasonable. Perhaps Abdul can comment more on the sort of international financial transaction side, which I don't really know much about. But for a UK graduate, that would be a very, very reasonable price. So we'd encourage you to look at our website, have a look at the demonstration questions, and make your own decision about it. But there's a lot of questions there, and we're quite confident that if you work through this, then your chances of passing the MRCS is really very high. This is not an MRCS B resource. That's something that will develop over the course of time. There's only so many hours in the day, and there's still a clinical job to do. So we started off with this, and we're very proud of this. Okay.
I do believe, Prof, that the price is very reasonable. Now, two things, guys, that you have
Hmm.
to pay attention to. Number one, there is a 1 month subscription option, which, of course, as we agreed, 1 month is not really enough for a revision. But it's a good idea to just at least have a look at the questions if you want to try that. Now, transaction-wise, I will try to be up to date here. I believe 10 British pounds are about 620, 630 Egyptian pounds, which are not really that much at all for a month subscription. And it's way less expensive than other question banks that I've used personally. So I've just talked about the past test. I'm not exactly sure about the pricing right now, but it was more expensive than that when I did my exam about more than a year ago. So I'm pretty sure it's more expensive right now. And I do not believe that they have a 1 month option. So you have now two kinds of good sides to it. And if you go higher, so if you get 6 months, you get £30. 6 months, I believe, is the golden standard if you're preparing properly for the exam. So if it's 6 months, £30 is about £5 a month. We're talking about 350, 360 Egyptian pounds, which we do know now that with the inflation side, it's not that much at all, really. You will never find a book that cheap anywhere, of one of the books that I talked about. Not to mention that 4,000 questions are more than enough. I do not think you will need any other question banks that well, you will hardly finish the 4,000 questions and revise them, as I would very much like you to do, in order to make sure that you consolidate all of this. There's a nice demo on the website as well that you can use in order just to see how questions are designed. The nice part is that you'll find a question that I'm going to answer now in a wrong way, for example. Uh, so let's say that, and then once you do that, it will show you that the right answer was lichen planus, really, but the wrong answer was Styriasis rosea. So it will explain clearly why the right answer is like that, and then we'll go through the other causes and say, or give you a piece of information about them so that we will understand why you made that mistake. So, for example, if I think that was Styriasis rosea, I will say very clearly that it starts as a single large pink scaly herald patch on the trunk. Well, this is very clearly the arm. And then followed by widespread rashes, motor lesions, not matching the description of flat top to violaceous papules that we all took in dermatology. So I think this is very useful as a question bank that it will help you understand. Again, I'm repeating this expression more and more, your Achilles heel of knowledge. You'll think, oh, perhaps I'm not very good in that side of dermatology and I need to read on lichen planus or I need to read on psoriasis rosea. And then I can open that particular topic and then read on it. So that is very good, not just a right versus wrong answer and the scripted way that sometimes exams are prepared with. Again, you can pause the demo, you can reset it, you have all of these things. And as I said, the subscription is, I do think it's rather affordable. One little remark though, because it's really cheap, to be honest, I think that the full prices will be happening on the 1st of May 2026. So I would buy them now, cover myself until after May. So the 6 months is £30. and that will provide you with a good coverage until July. Which I mean, some people might be sitting the exam now later in the month, but people are sitting it in April, I believe, in September. I think especially people in September will benefit so much from the 6 month subscription, or if you're sitting it in April, perhaps you can also get the 3 month subscription and be covered until the time of the exam. Um, I do believe it's a very useful resource, so I took a look at it. The questions are very well designed, and I do believe that they will cover the main things that you need to revise. And the main thing, actually, I believe it's shown here as well. And I was discussing this earlier. You can open it from any device. If you open it from your phone, you can easily get your questions every day, arresting your shift, or perhaps you don't have a very busy operating theater, or you're sitting in the ward not doing much. You can open that, get a 20 or 30 questions answered on the day, have some notes on the side, and if you do that every day, you will really be surprised by how much you achieved in a month. I do believe so.
Thanks, Abdul. That's fantastic. And the only thing to add is with the timed test that I mentioned, there is a dyslexia allowance for those who will be claiming on that. You get a time allowance. So that's something just to keep in mind. And I believe this is the only website which offers that function. So that's great. I think that's been a really good session. I'm really grateful to Abdul and my colleagues for putting this together. And very nice to meet you all rather impersonally online. But we've had 18 participants or thereabouts. And if you have any questions, feel free to post them on the chat and we'll do our best to answer that. But we look forward to growing on this relationship. As I said, the main aim here is to support you guys taking the UK exam, and we're happy to help in whatever way we can. And it's on a personal note, quite exciting to have an overseas venture like this and to connect out to other surgeons out there. So we look forward to your feedback and thank you for your time. Abdul, any closing remarks from yourself?
Thank you, Prof. I do believe that this is a very good study webinar regarding the main things that people should focus on. I'm not sure if any of our participants are sitting the exam soon, perhaps in the next few days. Do focus on these tips regarding the exam. They will really make all the difference. And hopefully, if you, for the people sitting the exam later, do prepare as early as possible. I will at some point try to make a Facebook page where I will be posting stuff regarding our website, and I will keep it updated. Hopefully, also perhaps make a group that we can share knowledge on. I will update you as soon as possible. I use the groups to post, and hopefully, I can use them as well to show you the Facebook page and the groups that we're going to create in the future. And hopefully, I'll see you around.
Thanks very much, everybody. Do send us some feedback and let's do this again. I'm very happy to do webinars. I can certainly cover the GI tract. I think if I try to teach you orthopedics, it could be a bit of a disaster, but I have plenty of friends in various departments who can help with that. And I think the session on worked examples of MCQs will be an absolute game changer. And I think if we can organize that along the way, that would be good. So we could do a mixture of topics as well as practice and talk about technique at the same time. But if you have any ideas you want to give us, do email or contact Abdul in, I guess it'll be through Facebook. And we look forward to developing this relationship. And this was actually our first overseas webinar. We're reaching out to our surgical colleagues in Jordan and other countries as well, Malaysia included. So yeah, we look forward to building on the success of this. Thank you ever so much.
Uh, I'm going to post my email, guys. If you want to contact me, you're very welcome to. And also, I have put the link for the website above if you want to access it now, perhaps keep it in your bookmarks. Take a look at it. That would be great as well.
Good night, everyone, and all the very best to any of you who are taking the exam soon.
Good night, guys. See you.